Did you know? Back between 1986 and 1994, in the city of Hwaseong, South Korea, a series of dark events shook the entire nation to its core. Within just 5 years, 10 women vanished, only to lose their lives in the quiet countryside. The whole country was consumed by pure terror. The police deployed millions of officers to hunt down the killer, but it was all in vain. Instead, the pressure led to a catastrophic failure of justice. An innocent man was wrongfully convicted and locked away for 20 long years. Meanwhile, the real monster was still out there, walking completely free. It's chilling to even think about. The truth only came to light in 2019, thanks to modern DNA technology. For decades, as the case sat cold and abandoned, the real killer lived a peaceful life, without a single soul suspecting a thing. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Jejak Kala. In today's video, we are unraveling one of the darkest and most heartbreaking chapters in South Korea's judicial history. A story of a serial killer who didn't just claim the lives of innocent women, but also a tragic symbol of how desperation and institutional failure can destroy an innocent man's life for decades. So, without further ado, let's begin. This nightmare began on the night of September 13th, 1986, in Hwaseong. That night, a 71-year-old grandmother named Lee Won-im was walking home alone along a dark dirt road through the rice fields after visiting her child. Back then, there were barely any streetlights. Every night, the countryside became pitch black and terrifyingly dangerous for anyone walking alone. Halfway home, Lee stopped, sensing someone trailing her from the shadows. And as she turned around, a male figure suddenly lunged at her from behind the bushes. He dragged her into the field, bound her hands using her own clothes, and brutally ended her life. Grandmother Lee became the very first victim of this horrific spree. Just a month later, on October 20th, 1986, another woman, Park Hyun-suk, was ambushed from behind, right after stepping off a night bus. Her body was dumped in a drainage canal, following the exact same horrifying pattern. Overnight, the atmosphere in Hwaseong shifted. It became a ghost town after dark. Fear gripped the residents, especially women. Rumors even spread that wearing red clothing would make you a target. Hwaseong was still an isolated rural town back then. No proper lighting and absolutely zero CCTV cameras. The dark, deserted roads gave the killer complete freedom to strike again and again without leaving a single trace. Between late 1986 and mid-1987, victim after victim fell in remote areas across the region. Starting with the third victim, Kwon Jung-bon, a 25-year-old woman abducted on December 12, 1986, right outside her own house, followed by Lee Kye-suk just 2 days later on December 14th. Then, Hong Jin-young, a 19-year-old student on January 10, 1987, in the Hwanggae-ri fields. Park Eun-ju on May 2, 1987, and An Gi-soon on September 7, 1987. Every single one was found in isolated, pitch-black locations, tied up using their own clothing. To paint a clearer picture, the killer used whatever the victims were wearing: socks, stockings, underwear, bras, or dress straps, binding their wrists, ankles, and necks with terrifying force. As the body count rose with no answers in sight, public pressure and media outrage exploded against the authorities. The South Korean police panicked. Desperate and lost, they were under crushing pressure to make an arrest. Any arrest. The breaking point arrived on September 16, 1988, when the eighth victim, a 14-year-old girl named Park Sang-hee, was found dead inside her own bedroom in Taeyeon-yup. Frustrated and desperate to silence the public hysteria, the police did the unthinkable. They picked an easy target, framing a local young man named Unsolved. Unsolved was just a 22-year-old worker at a local machine factory. He grew up in extreme poverty and suffered from physical disabilities in his legs due to childhood polio. Because of his weak physical condition and low social status, the police viewed him as the perfect scapegoat. On July 25, 1989, police abruptly arrested Yoon without any solid evidence. Inside a sealed interrogation room at the Hwasong police station, Yoon endured inhuman physical and mental torture. He was forced to stand for 3 days straight without sleep, beaten, intimidated, and threatened that he would never leave that room alive unless he confessed to killing 14-year-old Park Sang-hee. Broken and physically unable to withstand the relentless cruelty, Yoon finally broke down and signed a false confession drafted by the investigators. During his trial at the Suwon District Court, Yoon courageously tried to recant his confession, crying out to the judge that he had been tortured. But the judges turned a blind eye, sentencing him to life in prison on October 20th, 1989. Refusing to give up on justice, Yoon appealed to the Seoul High Court. They rejected it. He took his case all the way to the Supreme Court of South Korea, and once again, the Supreme Court slammed the gavel down, solidifying his life sentence. The doors to justice were slammed shut in Yoon's face, forcing him to spend his entire youth inside the cold, unforgiving walls of Cheongju prison. Inside, his days were consumed by deep despair. His physical disability, combined with the sickening stigma of being labeled a child murderer among inmates, broke him completely. He was isolated, while young men his age outside were building their futures and enjoying their lives. For 2 long decades behind bars, Yoon maintained flawless behavior, holding on to a faint flicker of hope that the truth would eventually surface. He was forced to survive in the shadow of a crime he never committed, haunted every single night by the physical and emotional trauma of his torture. I can't help but ask myself, how can a human being be forced to bear such unimaginable suffering just to cover up the incompetence of law enforcement? For 20 years, Yoon suffered in a cell, while the actual monster was out there, breathing fresh air and living in peace. Honestly, it's infuriating. While Yoon Sung-yo was stuck behind bars, the nightmare in Hwasong was nowhere near over. On November 15, 1990, the real killer made his move again. This time, he went after a 14-year-old middle schooler named Kim Mi-jung. He ambushed her on her way home from school. Next day, her body was found dumped on a nearby hill, killed in the exact same gruesome way. Everything came to a head on April 3, 1991, his 10th and final victim in Hwasong. It was 69-year-old Kwon Soon-sang, who was attacked and left in the hills of Dongtan-myeon. Before we continue, as a quick side note, if you search for Dongtan-myeon on the map today, you will no longer find the quiet hills or the unlit, unpaved trails. That once haunting rural area has now completely vanished, replaced by Dongtan New Town, a modern metropolitan district lined with high-rise apartments, multi-lane highways, and bustling lifestyle hubs. Time and urban development may have flattened the hills where Kwon Soon-sang was discovered, but the dark legacy of Chun Jae's crimes remains permanently etched in history, never to be forgotten. Okay, let's continue. But after that, the killer just completely stopped. He vanished into thin air. The police were completely out of leads. Even after throwing over 2 million cops at the case and questioning more than 21,000 people, the tech back in the 90s just wasn't good enough to catch him. By April 2nd, 2006, the statute of limitations officially ran out, meaning legally, the killer was off the hook. This decades-old cold case finally saw a ray of light in mid-2019. The Gyeonggi Nambu Provincial Police Agency decided to reopen the files, leveraging state-of-the-art DNA profiling from the National Forensic Service. They retested preserved evidence from the vault, including clothing extracted from the victims decades ago. When the results came back, the lab was stunned. The DNA retrieved from the 5th, 7th, and 9th victims matched 100% with a 56-year-old inmate named Chun Jae. As it turned out, Lee had been sitting in Busan prison since 1994, serving a life sentence for the rape and murder of his own sister-in-law. After intense interrogation by senior investigators, Chun Jae finally cracked. On October 2, 2019, he formally confessed to everything. Lee admitted not just to the 10 Hwasong murders, but to a total of 14 killings and around 30 rapes. What's truly infuriating, Lee chillingly mocked the police, saying he was shocked it took them 30 years to figure out it was him. After looking deeper into Chun Jae's motives, his brutal actions were driven by a really dark psychological urge. According to criminal profilers, his main motive came down to sexual sadism and an obsession with having total control over his victims' lives. As a psychopath with zero empathy, his crimes eventually turned into an impulsive habit that he carried out without feeling the slightest bit of remorse. Lee's confession gave Yoon Sung-yeol the key he needed to reclaim his life. On November 13, 2019, accompanied by his lawyers, Yoon filed for a retrial. Chun Jae himself was brought into the courtroom as a witness, where he sat face-to-face with Yoon and confessed to the crime in open court. After a lengthy retrial, on December 17, 2020, the judge finally struck the gavel. The court declared Yoon Sung-yeol not guilty of the murder of Park Sung-hee, officially clearing his name after more than 30 years under the shadow of a crime he didn't commit. The judge even issued a public apology for the judicial failures of the past. Reading about that verdict, it honestly brings tears to my eyes. After decades of fighting a corrupt system, Yoon was finally free. To compensate for his wrongful conviction and torture, the South Korean government awarded Yoon 2.6 billion won, roughly $2.2 million US. While millions of dollars can never replace a stolen youth or damaged health, it at least provided a measure of concrete justice. Now, many people wondered, was Chun Jae sentenced to death for the 14 murders and 30 rapes he confessed to? The tragic legal truth is no. Because the last Hwasong murder occurred in April 1991, the statute of limitations had legally expired in 2006. Under South Korean law at the time, Lee could not be criminally charged or sentenced for the Hwasong crimes. But the good news is that this monster will never see the light of day again. Chun Jae will rot in prison for the rest of his life, serving his original life sentence for the 1994 murder of his sister-in-law. He remains behind bars to this day. Oh, and as an eerie side note, this cold case actually inspired one of South Korea's greatest cinematic masterpieces, the 2003 film Memories of Murder. The disturbing plot twist? Chun Jae admitted that he actually watched the movie 3 times inside his prison cell. He casually remarked that he thought the film was just okay, feeling absolutely zero emotion seeing his own horrific crimes portrayed on the screen. Oh my God. The Hwasong case serves as a dark, unforgettable lesson about how dangerous systemic injustice truly is. When public pressure and police egos take priority over the truth, innocent lives are destroyed without a second thought. Yoon Sung-yeol's tragedy is a painful reminder that rushed, coercive justice only lets the real monsters walk free. But it also proves the power of modern science and forensics, that no matter how deep the truth is buried, it will eventually find its way back to the light. Seeing Yoon's 30-year fight for justice reminds me that hope is never truly lost. What about you? Do you think a multi-million-dollar settlement is enough to make up for 20 years of stolen youth behind bars? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much to everyone for staying with us through this tragic story. I'd also like to extend my deepest gratitude to the donors supporting this channel. Special thanks to Michael Vance, Shad Hun, Paula Hobbs, Sarah Jenkins, Neon Viper _88,